Makerfield?
Yes, I think that would be extremely sensible. I think it's incredibly unpredictable what will happen, though, because on paper, reform should win. But there is a Burnham factor. Sophie Weaver was telling Breakfast earlier. People were shouting out in the constituency, there's only one Andy Burnham. And will people see the drama of this? If Andy Burnham wins it, we'll have a new Prime Minister, possibly a change in Westminster. It's a really hard one to call.
It is, but I do think there will be that pressure on Kemi Badenoch with the Conservatives barely in the race at all in Gorton and Denton. Did they even get their deposit? I don't think they did.
No, they didn't.
And so that focus will be on now, if it's going to be a razor-thin margin, you got about 4,000 votes in 2024. Is this an opportunity, Miriam Cates, to unite the right and have a referendum not on Sir Keir Starmer, but on who is ever going to go into number 10? If Burnham doesn't win, surely that would mean a general election. That's going to be the message from Reform.
Well, if Burnham does win, perhaps it will also mean a general election, because he was very keen back in 2022 when, of course, Boris Johnson was being brought down, that whoever became the new Conservative Prime Minister should call a poll. Well, will he do the same?
He definitely won't. Come on, it'll be an instant moment of hypocrisy. There'll be no general election if Andy Burnham wins that by-election. You heard it here first. But we'd love to hear what you think, of course. Send your views, post your comments. You know the drill by now. It's gbnews.com/your say.
But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you. The top stories. Labour MP for Makerfield Josh Simons has stood aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. Announcing he would stand down, Simons said he believed Burnham could drive the change our country is crying out for. A college student has died and 2 people are being treated after cases of meningitis in Reading in Berkshire, the UK Health Security Agency has said. It said close contacts of those affected were being offered antibiotics as a precaution. Donald Trump has left Beijing after an historic state visit to China. Following talks on that final day of the visit, the US president has suggested the military destruction of Iran is to be continued. Donald Trump has claimed he and Xi Jinping have settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to solve during the US president's state visit. And British Gas has agreed to a £20 million payout and to compensate customers who had a prepayment meter installed without their permission, regulator Ofgem has said following an investigation. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Charlie Peters and me, Miriam Cates.
Now, the Labour leadership battle has begun because the Labour MP for Makerfield, Josh Simons, he's announced that he will stand aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, the now former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, quit his post yesterday, saying the party needs a vision and not a vacuum.
Well, Reform UK are chomping at the bit for the Makerfield by-election, saying they'll throw everything at it. So, what do you expect for the next 24 hours then, Miriam? What do you think is going to happen next?
What about the next 24 minutes? Who knows? Well, I think Reform should select somebody local.
Yes.
I think that would be sensible, make it about the local area. But whatever happens, it's going to be one of the most significant by-elections of the century. Either Burnham will beat Reform, in which case he can show Labour voters and the Labour Party that he's the one to take on Farage, or he'll lose absolutely everything, his whole political career, and Reform will win. And then what happens?
I think this is a nervous moment for Reform, though, because they must realise this is such a major target seat for them. Without the Burnham factor, as it's being touted up at the moment, they are predicted to win that seat at the next general election. So if Andy Burnham does win here, it will immediately cause a lot of questions to be asked of the Reform strategy. Were you only very popular against Starmer? Might that change with Burnham coming in? But equally, even if it's very, very razor thin, it'll show that all the momentum is with Reform over the Conservatives. Will they even be standing in this race? I mean, I'm sure they will, but as you said a moment ago, the advice to them for the right will be, don't do it. This is a chance to have a referendum, not just on Sir Keir Starmer, but on the Labour government entirely. And I think that will be the Reform message for this election. It'll be vote for Reform, and there'll be a general election and you'll get rid of the government that can't stop the boats and can't get the economy properly going. 0.6%, you might say, but we are in a bit of trouble.
Well, and Josh Simons did say in his resignation letter yesterday, this is the last chance for Labour. I mean, they are dead as a party if they don't win this by-election, if they can't turn the government around. And
no pressure, then.
No pressure, but nobody has yet made the correct diagnosis of what's gone wrong and what needs to change. Can Andy Burnham do that? We're yet to see.
Right, let's go now to Downing Street to speak with our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Good morning to you, Tom. Thank you very much for joining us. So what's the latest then from the Labour Party amid this ongoing psychodrama?
Yeah, psychodrama is the way to put it, Charlie. Frankly, we do not know where things stand. The NEC is yet to make a statement on whether they'll allow Andy Burnham to stand as a candidate in Makerfield. It must be said that there had been some positive noises towards that from Number 10, but I've spoken to sources close to the NEC today who have told me that the decision will not be made until Sunday or Monday, and that decision is on a knife edge, with not every member of the NEC Officer Committee, 9 of them in total, following what Number 10 is suggesting to the media. So a bit of uncertainty there. And then we get to what the actual vote share in Makerfield might be. Makerfield sits in the Wigan Council area, an area that Reform won every single council seat in last Thursday. However, there have been some attempts to sort of see how this seat might go. The Britain Elects website, working for the New Statesman, has shown that their model shows that by 41% to 28%, the Reform Party would take that seat as things stand. I spoke to Nigel Farage on the phone yesterday, who told me that Reform would throw everything at that seat. However, there is one confounding factor here, which is that we do have some data to see how the Labour vote and the Green vote might change depending on who the candidate is. Using polling data from the Gorton and Denton by-election, a poll carried out by Survation, what Britain Elects has done is modelled that, applied that to the data they have for the seat of Makerfield to try and adjust for what they describe is a Burnham effect. And adjusting it using that polling information, they can see something quite remarkable happen. The Labour vote rises from 28 to 36. And the Reform vote falls from 41 to 36. Sorry, the Labour vote rises to 39. So Labour would actually be ahead using that Burnham effect, using that adjusted modelling. The Labour vote rises ahead of the Reform vote by just 3 points. Could a Burnham candidacy actually put the Labour Party ahead in that seat? Well, according to this model at least, quite possibly.
Tom Harwood, outside Number 10 Downing Street, thank you very much. Well, we can now talk to Ben Walker, who was the data journalist who wrote about that polling today in the New Statesman. Ben, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for Tom stealing my thunder.
Well, I won't ask you to repeat the various different statistical analyses that Tom went through there. But essentially, what your piece is saying is that if it wasn't Andy Burnham standing in this by-election, it would probably be a clear win for Reform. But there is this Burnham factor. He does have a popularity. How significant do you think that is, that name recognition, that Andy Burnham factor in this case?
Oh, it's gold dust. First of all, Makerfield, for those who don't know where it is essentially Wigan South. So it's just a little bit north of Warrington, far down the railway line from Preston. It's a bit of a weird combination of little wards. And as Tom said, yeah, it went totally Reform at the elections just gone. We're talking 50% Reform, 23% Labour. Labour got less than half the vote that Reform got. Now, Burnham represented the neighbouring seat of Lee just a few years ago before he became the mayor of Greater Manchester. And you identified it yourself. People shout there's only one Andy Burnham. The Burnham factor in Greater Manchester is there. In the northwest of England, he does about 20 points better in terms of favourability than the rest of the country. So to put that in context, Burnham is on around about 30-40% favourability nationally. And then in the northwest, it's more like 50-60 going on, something like that. He is gold dust among certain sections of the electorate. He is the only Labour figure for whom Reform voters don't out and out hate. 1 in 5, though, admittedly. It's only 1 in 5 Reform voters, current Reform voters, who say they have a favourable opinion of Andy Burnham. And then you add on top the 3 in 10, 4 in 10 Green voters who say they have a favourable opinion of Andy Burnham, all the while totally rejecting Keir Starmer, totally rejecting Rachel Reeves and any other Labour figure out there. Here is a man who is gold dust. If he was the Labour candidate, it wouldn't be the Labour government versus reform, it would be Burnham's Labour versus reform. That's the narrative Burnham wants to put out there.
Now, Ben, I know obviously that data is fascinating, but it would be subject to quite urgent change on a national standing if he were to become an MP and indeed leader of the Labour Party. One of the reasons perhaps why he has a higher favourability among reform voters as a Labour figure is that he hasn't done anything as a Labour figure in Parliament for a long time now. And if he starts to become associated with this deeply unpopular political action, that is the Labour movement since 2024, that could suddenly shift, could it not?
Absolutely. The thing is, he has the ooh shiny factor. He is the new kid on the block, even though he does have, we've known him for quite some time. But he is the person for whom a lot of people, irate with the current Starmer leadership, broadly, maybe aligned with it, might be thinking of voting for them. A lot of these voters are projecting onto him whatever he can be. And you may have noticed, and you may have noticed in the way we cover him, he is, I wouldn't say he's all things to all men, but he is quite broad in his own church, isn't he, and what he stands for. So you're getting a lot of voters projecting onto him. Truth of the matter is he's perceived to have done very well in Greater Manchester, but the minute he moves down to Westminster is the minute what? What does he become? Who is he? I think it's fair to say that if you were to poll public on what do you think Burnham is trying to do, most people would say, well, he wants to be the next Prime Minister. He has already effectively announced his leadership campaign. His statement mentioned leadership how many times? It was more than once, I'll tell you that. People notice. People know that. And I don't think it's hurting him yet. But the minute he gets down to Westminster is the minute his relationship with the voters gets reset. You're right.
Now, Ben, just finally, Josh Simons, the MP who's given up his seat to allow Burnham this shot at Parliament, he is seen as one of the architects of Starmerism, the architects of Starmer's victory. Were you surprised that he stepped aside for Andy Burnham?
Absolutely. Of all the MPs I was thinking who was sympathetic, I even thought Lisa Nandy would step down and do a swap with Burnham. Nandy would step down to run for Greater Manchester. Burnham would return to Parliament and save the country, so to speak. Josh Simmons, whatever. He used to work for Jeremy Corbyn. He then worked for Labour Together, which I suppose aligns with Burnham's breadth of political history. This is a complete shocker, but it speaks, I think, to the breadth of feeling in the Parliamentary Labour Party. Wes Streeting, he thought he had 81 nominations, and, you're seeing on social media reports he only had 40. I don't think the Labour Party is as, I suppose, Starmer-aligned as we think, particularly amongst the MPs and definitely amongst the members.
And Ben, there will be actions taking place in the building in front of us on our screens right now to shore up the Starmer defence. Looking at the data you have on the popularity of cabinet ministers, what might you anticipate from a reshuffle that might take place now to reclaim Starmer's place in number 10?
Oh God, reset, start over, or rather abandon ship, all is lost. The thing with Keir Starmer is, unfortunately, he is best... Put it there, I'll say this again. When I was trying to think of a way to sell Keir Starmer, how best can you sell him to the electorate? I did realise the only way you can sell him now is on foreign policy. That's the only issue on which he polls pretty well with the public. On everything else, he is absolutely a rock bottom, and I cannot say enough. He has fallen further and faster right now than even Liz Truss amongst some opinion polls. He is at rock bottom. To reset his relationship with the country, I think he might need to leave the country and focus a little bit more on foreign policy in the way George Bush Sr. did in America. Amongst other cabinet members, the only ones who have some semblance of name recognition, favourability, you've got Ed Miliband. That's it, really. Angela Rayner is, 6 in 10 disliked. Wes Streeting is 5 in 10 disliked, going on 6 in 10 now. It's a pretty unpopular cabinet, I'm afraid.
Ben Walker, thank you very much for that very candid analysis of what's going on in the Labour Party. Ben Walker from the New Statesman.
Always a pleasure to speak to people from the New Statesman because they've got a proper podcast microphone set up. Nice voice as well, Ben Walker. Could listen to you all day.
Absolutely fascinating. Well, There's lots of turmoil going on in the Labour Party.
Yes, and potentially some turmoil this weekend because coming up on Britain's Newsroom, 4,000 police officers will be deployed to the capital, where there's going to be a pro-Palestine march, Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally, and the FA Cup final, all taking place tomorrow. Are you going to be at any of those events? I imagine some of you might have tickets to the FA Cup final. Can't imagine many of you will be on the pro-Palestine march. But who knows, maybe you'll surprise us. GBnews.com/you're saying.
Well, don't ask me who's in the final, because I have no idea. But coming up next...
It's not you, that's for sure.
It's definitely not me. Yes, no idea which teams are in that. Well, the battle for number 10 is heating up. But who else are the runners and riders, and who is the most popular with the public?
First, if you're in search of some holiday sun, perhaps a Keir Starmer popular with his foreign policy, here's a forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies for most of Portugal this weekend. Same goes for Sicily and Sardinia. A few showers likely in Croatia. Showers can't be completely ruled out in Madeira as well, with a fairly brisk and cool wind blowing here. Plenty of sunshine though around the Spanish costas. Sunny spells too for the Balearics, as I said, Sardinia and Sicily. Some heavy showers though in Croatia. They should be moving away though, so Dubrovnik looking sunnier on Sunday, and signs of things warming up a touch in Rome as we head into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today is Victory in Europe Day. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May.
This historic proclamation by Winston Churchill was a moment for the nation to rejoice. Celebrations were held across Europe to mark the end of the Second World War. 81 years on, V-E Day is commemorated. At Deangate Care Home in Barnsley, a special party was held to honour those who helped defeat the Nazis all those decades ago, and to thank veterans at the home.
We are a veteran-friendly home, and I like to showcase all of our veterans at any time of the year, and V-E Day is just a perfect reason, really, to really put them on a pedestal and show everybody how good our veterans are and the local community is. We should be so thankful for what they've done.
For the veterans here, the sacrifices of those who gave their today for our tomorrow should never be forgotten.
The main thing is that my father's medals, which I wear on my right side, is just a tribute to him, and that he served all the way through the Second World War. And, of course, myself, when I served 22 years afterwards.
I think it was vital that they remembered this V-E Day, and, you know, that we carried it on.
Their dad was the only one left out of 5 in that tank. So he was injured in there, and he was in the 8th Army under Montgomery's division.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome welcome back. It's 9:52 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom only on GB News.
Well, the long-awaited Labour leadership has finally begun, or almost. Andy Burnham, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Ed Miliband and Al Cairns are all rumoured to be gearing up to the challenge to become PM.
Well, let's speak now to the Head of Policy and Public Affairs Research at Opinion. That's James Crouch. James, quite a list of names we've read out just there. Of course, only one of them really expected to be running immediately if they do get that seat. That is, of course, Andy Burnham. But how do they all stack up in terms of popularity?
Yes, good morning. It's interesting because I'm sure the Labour Party is basically looking for a silver bullet, right? It's all they need is someone who can get them out of the hole that they are currently in and try and regain some ground of kind of popularity. And if you were looking for that silver bullet, Andy Burnham really does have to be your guy because he's not been part of the government. He's not been kind of tainted by its unpopularity. At this stage, it's always a bit complicated to do the horse race because people don't really know what the options are and we don't know what the options are. But if you were kind of going for the person with the least level of unpopularity, Andy Burnham is definitely where you'd start. But there's some interesting ones to actually avoid. I know that you've already talked quite a lot about polling recently on the show. Wes Streeting wouldn't be a terrible choice either. I think a lot of voters are open to him and he has a good reputation inside the government relatively. But if I were avoiding some people, there's three I would avoid based on where the public are at the moment. Number one is obviously Rachel Reeves, who is as unpopular as the Prime Minister. I'd avoid Angela Rayner, who is incredibly unpopular amongst vast swathes of the electorate, but just not some Labour members and voters. And then actually also, I disagree with Ben, Ed Miliband has a level of unpopularity, especially with Reform voters. So there's a few to avoid, I think.
Now, James, when we look at the issues that most interest people in polling, cost of living is top of the agenda again, then NHS, then immigration. How important do you think those issues will be at the by-election, or will this be a straight-out fight between Burnham as Labour PM and Farage as a potential Reform PM?
I know that we're all saying that Wes Streeting must be the candidate of the right, so Andy Burnham must be the candidate of the left within the Labour Party. But yeah, as you say, they're aiming for Reform voters, or at least Labour voters who are moving to Reform. So there'll have to be an element of talking about cost of living. But what does that precisely look like? How does Burnham judge, as you say, precisely that immigration element? Because the Labour Party is definitely torn over it. I'd be absolutely amazed if whoever becomes the next Prime Minister, Shabana Mahmood, is going to stay at the Home Office. Because of the level of her unpopularity within Labour supporting circles. But precisely how he plays that balance, it's a bit unclear. We're not really sure what a Burnham premiership, I guess, would look like. So it'll be interesting to see.
OK, James Crouch, Head of Policy and Public Affairs Research at Opinion. Thank you very much for your insight this morning. Fascinating hearing from James there, Miriam, talking about how Shabana Mahmood is so unpopular within Labour members. Isn't it interesting? She's the only person really moving the party to the right on one issue. Many critics will say not far enough, not even close to being far enough on the immigration crisis that the country is facing. But at the same time, she's making those moves and they despise her for it. I have to say, I don't think there's much hope for any of them, really, in that state of affairs.
Interestingly, though, she is the chair of the NEC and she's very close to Josh Simons. So it could indicate she may stay in place as Home Secretary if we had an Andy Burnham premiership.
If they want to be Home Secretary, they need a new plan for immigration to finally get rid of the small boat crisis. And I don't think they have one up their sleeves.
Probably not yet. Maybe Andy Burnham will announce one. Well, plenty more coming up in Britain's Newsroom after the break.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The M8 eastbound between junctions 20 and 19 has no access to Bothwell off-slip or North Street from West Street on-ramp due to emergency roadworks. An incident on the A4042 northbound near New Inn to the A472 interchange is causing delays. Traffic is slow on the A52 eastbound in Nottinghamshire between the A6011 and junction with the A46 after a serious crash closed all lanes until mid-afternoon. And on the trains, South Eastern faced disruption between Hastings and Tonbridge, while Transport for Wales trains are not running between Pembroke Dock and Carmarthen. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Friday the 15th of May. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, it's time for Burnham's big move. The Makerfield MP, Josh Simons, has stepped aside as Mr Burnham swoops in to run for the seat and number 10.
Well, the Prime Minister is still in office, but just clinging on to power after all the talk of Wes Streeting this time yesterday. Is it now Andy Burnham or bust for the Labour Party?
Well, since this constituency came into existence in 1983, it has always been a Labour safe seat. But for how much longer? We're on the ground asking people what they make of it.
Well, how will the Reform Party respond? Nigel Farage declares his party will throw absolutely everything at the by-election. Richard Tice MP went even further on GB News this morning.
Our ambition is to ensure that Andy Burnham is thrown out completely. So we want to defeat him in the constituency. He will have had to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester, and then we will win.
Of course, after the fleeting streeting, with Wes telling the PM he's lost confidence in him, but he didn't challenge his leadership as he quit the government.
I think having a leadership election would be the wrong choice for us to take.
Well, that is the new Health Secretary. We'll fill you in on who James Murray is, the man who will fill the boots of Wes Streeting.
In fact, in almost all of our seats right across the country, whether they're target or non-target, the Green Party vote share is rising.
Green Party vote share rising in some quarters, but Zach Polansky didn't register to vote for the local elections this month. We'll find out why.
And we're in for a weekend of protests. 4,000 police officers will be deployed to the capital city to oversee a pro-Palestine march, Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally and the FA Cup final.
Elsewhere, there's going a China charm offensive for the US President Donald Trump. He's heading back to Washington after he met with President Xi Jinping, where they discussed the Middle East conflict.
We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end, and we don't want them to have a nuclear weapon.
Spend it like Beckham. Sir David has become the first billionaire sportsman in the Sunday Times rich list, which was released this morning. Back of the net for Bex.
Big job for the Met Police this weekend. Tomorrow with those rallies, marches and an FA Cup final taking place. What I did think was rather curious, Miriam, is the news that we heard yesterday that the Met Police will be deploying facial recognition technology, but only for the Unite the Kingdom rally in the London Borough of Camden area. I imagine that'll be around Euston and King's Cross as people come in. Now, the Met have said, you know, we're concerned about people travelling who've got violent intent, as it were, and we want to sort of capture those people. They're still looking for some people, I believe, some suspects after violence erupted in some quarters in September. But why would you only apply that technology on one march and not the other? Are they not seeking suspects related to the relentless pro-Palestine marches, as they are termed in some quarters, as hate marches, as they are known in others? Miriam, we've seen at these marches people wearing headbands commemorating terrorist organisations like Hezbollah, like Hamas. We've seen people chanting about genocidal intent, about wiping away the state of Israel, the Jewish state. I mean, if any march ever called for a bit of facial recognition, I thought it might be that one as well, don't you?
Maybe it's because they all wear masks. Facial recognition is useless. I mean, there might be a sensible reason. There might be some actual individuals that they're seeking, but the problem is people no longer trust the police's impartiality on this matter. There is this sense of two-tier policing, so it doesn't look good.
It's just a terrible decision from an optics perspective. And indeed, I think, you know, it's a sort of decision that might have ramifications in people's trust in the police on this matter, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah. Well, do let us know what you think. Send your views and post your comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Right, lots to get stuck into, including many discussions about who might next be walking into that door on your screens right now. But let's cross over to Tatiana Sanchez for a quick news update.
Charlie, thank you. The top stories. Labour MP for Makerfield Josh Simons has stood aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. Announcing he would stand down, Simons said he believed Burnham could drive the change our country is crying out for. Earlier on Thursday, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, also seen as a potential challenger to Sir Keir, said she had resolved her tax affairs with HMRC. Well, this all comes also as Wes Streeting resigned as the Health Secretary. In his resignation letter to Sir Keir Starmer, Mr Streeting said he had lost confidence in Sir Keir's leadership. James Murray has become the new Health Secretary. Well, Steve Reid spoke to GB News Breakfast.
I'm absolutely sure select someone who has the best chance and who will ultimately defeat Andy Burnham. And our simple campaign is vote reform, make Burnham history. And that's the point. We've essentially already replaced him as the King of the North with the fantastic results we got last week in the local elections, when we won whole councils all over the North, from Gateshead, Sunderland, and Barnsley, Wakefield, St Helens and the like. So, yeah, look, the North have already spoken.
That was Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice. And here is Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary. He spoke to GB News this morning.
First of all, I felt very sad that Wes had decided to stand down. I've known Wes personally since before both of us were members of Parliament. I think he is an incredibly talented individual and a politician who makes a really big impact. We saw that in the figures yesterday that showed the biggest fall in NHS waiting lists for 18 years. So I'm sorry that Wes decided to walk away when he and the government were delivering a big change like that.
In other news, a college student has died and 2 people are being treated after cases of meningitis in Reading. That's according to the UK Health Security Agency. It said close contacts of those affected were being offered antibiotics as a precaution. The agency said the person who died was a student at Henley College in Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire and was sharing information about the infection with students and parents at all affected schools. It added the risk to the wider public was low, though. The UK HSA said one case had been confirmed as Men B and it was awaiting further testing results. It's not said what the link to Reading was. GP surgery, the heart surgery based in Henley-on-Thames, said it was in contact with the UK HSA due to the college's location, adding the agency was actively contacting those who may be at risk due to a close association with the student involved. Elsewhere, Donald Trump has left Beijing after an historic state visit to China. Following talks on the final day of the visit, the US president suggested the military destruction of Iran is to be continued. It comes amid stalled talks with Iran after Mr. Trump said the already fragile ceasefire was on life support. Donald Trump has claimed he and Xi Jinping have settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to solve during the US president's state visit. While the US president also said China wants the Strait of Hormuz open again and that Beijing has agreed to buy oil from the US. In other news, British Gas has agreed to a £20 million payout and to compensate customers who had a prepayment meter installed without their permission, the regulator Ofgem has said following an investigation. The energy supplier will compensate customers who were affected in 2018 to 2021 on top of payments that have already been made to those affected in 22 to 23. British Gas will also write off up to £70 million of energy debt for vulnerable customers as part of that agreement. Ofgem saying the investigation into 5-year-long policies and procedures had been one of the most complex in its history. And finally, the Green Party leader, Zach Polansky, has admitted he did not vote in recent local elections as he fell short of time to register while moving house. In a statement to The Independent, a party spokesperson said Mr. Polansky could not vote due to the extra steps needed to register to vote anonymously following recent anti-Semitic and homophobic abuse. Polansky previously told Hackney mayoral candidate Zoe Garbett, "You have my vote," in a video on May the 3rd. Well, this all comes after controversy over whether or not the party leader may have failed to pay the correct council tax while living on a London houseboat. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome to Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News, with me, Charlie Peters, and Miriam Cates.
Well, the Labour leadership battle has finally begun. The Labour MP for Makerfield, Josh Simons, has announced he will stand aside so that Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, the now former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, quit his post yesterday, saying that the party needs a vision, not a vacuum.
Meanwhile, Reform UK are chomping at the bit for the by-election, saying they'll throw everything they can at it.
Well, let's cross now to our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, for all the latest. Catherine, what have you been hearing from Labour Party sources about this decision from Andy Burnham to run in Makerfield?
Yes, well, good morning from Downing Street, where things feel a little bit calmer than they have the rest of the week. I've been here all week and it has been completely wild, the weather and the political manoeuvrings. It seems to me, from what people have said to me, and indeed what up to cabinet ministers have said to me over a period of time, that many in Labour view Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, the King of the North, as their best hope. And really, everything changed yesterday afternoon, because this time yesterday morning, we were all talking about Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. When was he going to resign? When was he going to mount that leadership challenge? Now, he resigned at lunchtime with an excoriating letter, but he has not mounted a challenge. So number 10 are saying, look, there's no challenge. There's no challenge at the moment. So the Prime Minister still in office. I would say he is clinging on to power, and I suspect he's been given a little bit of time now because, and I could be wrong, and it's very dangerous to make predictions, but I suspect what will happen now is that everything will focus on this critical by-election in Makerfield. Now, the NEC have got to decide not to block Andy Burnham again, as they did in Gorton and Denton. We hear that number 10 have green-lit him standing. I don't think number 10 is strong enough now to block that again, and I think there would just be absolute uproar if they did. And then we're going to have what I think will be a quite extraordinary by-election. We don't know the date that it will be held, but it could be held as soon as the middle of June.
Catherine Forster outside number 10 Downing Street, thank you very much. There is an additional hurdle, Charlie, that nobody's mentioned that yet, which is Andy Burnham has to get the approval of the NEC, but then he has to get selected by the local Labour Party. Now, I would imagine that's a formality. What if they didn't want him?
Let's find out, shall we, with our national reporter Sophie Reaper, who joins us from Makerfield. Sophie, lots of hurdles to be jumped, but what are people saying in the constituency that could be soon selecting Andy Burnham?
Well, a very good morning to you both. It is a bit of a mixed bag here in Makerfield this morning, and that is because on one side of the story, we have the facts that this is traditionally one of Labour's safest seats in the country. In fact, since it became a constituency back in 1983, it has always been run by a Labour MP, of course, most recently by Josh Simons, who took the seat back in the 2024 general election. But then on the other side, we have the fact that in last week's local elections, Labour had an absolutely terrible showing, and that was because there were 25 seats up for grabs and they lost every single one of them, 24 of them to the Reform Party. And that's what's being said on the ground here to me this morning. Either people are supporting Andy Burnham and are supporting the Labour Party here, or they're saying that they think Reform will come in. Nigel Farage, as we already know, has said that they're going to throw absolutely everything at this, and they're hoping and they believe that Reform will take this seat instead. So it's a very interesting one. A lot of risks for Andy Burnham, as you rightly say. He needs that NEC approval. He needs to be selected as the candidate. And then, of course, the people will go to the polls. So let's just take a listen to what some of the people have actually been saying to me here this morning.
To be honest, I think the wave is definitely towards Reform. Because of issues that Reform say that they're dedicated to tackle. That's why so many of the electorate have chosen to get on board with Reform.
Labour has done it in Ashton. We are now Reform voting town. We're fed up with the welfare state. Immigration is getting to be a problem within Ashton. So, all in all, I think he's got his job cut out to be an MP at this Makerfield seat.
Now, I would ask you who you're voting for, but you've made that abundantly clear this morning with your signage. Yeah. So I take it you would be voting for Reform no matter what?
Definitely. When it was the campaigning for general election, I listened to all the candidates, and I could only understand in clear, simple words Nigel Farage. He gave it straight, that was it. And Zia Youssef's, and he's a star. He's the strong. They come across as strong. They come across as relatable.
So, as I say, a bit of a mixed bag. Some support there for Reform, as we were hearing, particularly that lady who's already got her political signage ready to go, but also some support for Andy Burnham. And what's interesting is we're actually just down the road from Lee, which was the constituency in which Andy Burnham was MP from 2001 all the way up to 2017. So it's not too far down the road for him. Of course, there was speculation it was going to be somewhere else in the country, but we now know it's actually going to be relatively local for Andy Burnham. So it'll be an interesting one to see which way this one goes. I think could go either way, but very interesting one to follow.
Sophie Reaper, thank you very much. Well, of course, big consequences for local people. But what impact is all of this having on the markets? Well, joining us now is the economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Michael, good morning. Now, it's not as if our economy is in a good place to face this turmoil. What are you most worried about looking at the markets as we undergo another leadership election?
Well, we've seen the pound and shares kind of falling this morning, but the real worry for me is the spike in the gilt yield. Now, that's the cost, as your viewers know, of government borrowing. When it was first announced that Andy Burnham was, possibly going to be in the running, we saw a spike a few days ago, and this morning, as markets opened, we saw a spike again now, and that's because they've heard some of the language coming from people like Angela Rayner, other people who are seemingly supportive of Andy Burnham about how he might want to increase spending, how he's not going to be doing things like cutting welfare, and the people that lend us all this money that keeps the state going, that keeps us barely treading water, are starting to say enough is enough. They're not saying we're not going to lend you money at all anymore, but they're saying we're going to want a much larger premium on that money we're giving you. And the problem is that's just going to make Britain's problems, economic problems, harder and harder, because it means every year extra billions that the government has to pay just paying debt interest, just trying to keep our creditors at bay, rather than investing in schools, in hospitals, in building prisons, or dare I say it, cutting taxes.
And Michael, some of the language used by Andy Burnham and his allies, you can see why the markets are having a bit of a frightful moment. One of his key supporters, who is on the left of the Labour Party, said that the markets will have to fall in line. Doesn't this point to the fact that the Labour Party, it exists to spend public money, but there isn't rather much of it left? And if Andy Burnham comes in, he might be facing a big challenge as economic reality matches up with his rhetoric.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of these people, they're not malicious, these MPs. They just simply do not understand how the world works and where the country gets its money from. I mean, that quote that you're referring to there, I sent it to one of my market sources, and said, you're apparently going to have to fall into line with Andy Burnham's plans. And the response they gave me back, if I was to read it out on air now, you guys were getting a lot of trouble with Ofcom. I mean, there's real alarm in the markets about this, because they just don't understand. And I mean, Diane Abbott said, well, what's the point of being MPs? It's not democratic if we are ruled by the bond markets. And I have a certain sympathy for that view, but unfortunately you can't vote away reality. We can't all have a vote and say we want the markets to be kind to us. The markets are looking at the state that Britain has got itself in over the last 50 years and where we're going demographically, all these fiscal pressures through things like the triple lock, through things like welfare, and they're saying this is a problem and it's going to hit a crisis point. And actually, to be honest, if I was Andy Burnham, I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister, because he's going to find out that all these vote-winning plans that he's presumably going to advertise, he's going to find out he's not really able to do them. And unless we kind of sort out the kind of root one problems, get our economy in a position where there is room to maybe spend if you're pro-spending, or there's room to cut if you're pro-tax cutting, like someone like Liz Truss might have wanted to do, then, what's the point? We've got to sort out these fundamentals if we're to go anywhere as a nation.
Michael Simmons, thank you for that dose of reality. We do indeed seem to be walking a tightrope. Thank you very much.
Well, it's 20 minutes past 10 and it's time now for the Great British Giveaway. It's your chance to enjoy... How much is it, Miriam?
£76,543.21 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like in the coming months. Here are all the details you need.
£76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. What would you spend it on? Treat the family and friends to the ultimate summer party, or just relax with enough cash in the bank to make this year your best yet. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. So what are you waiting for? For a chance to win £76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Heathrow, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I hear anything.
Right, up next, Andy Burnham makes his move for a run at number 10 Downing Street using a vacant seat in Makerfield. But can Reform UK stop him in his tracks?
Well, we'll be going through that and more with Dr. Renee Honderkamp and Jonathan Liss. I'm sure they'll disagree on pretty much everything.
This is Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 25 minutes past 10. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Miriam.
Well, we're joined in the studio by the Friday favourites, Jonathan Liss and GB News contributor Renee Honderkamp. Good to see you both this morning. Of course, there's loads to get through today, plenty of news, but we're starting, of course, with the Andy Burnham news. Jonathan, what do you make of it?
Well, spare a thought for Wes Streeting, and it's not often I say that because he made his resignation yesterday, and that was the big news that had been trailed for weeks and indeed months. Wes Streeting is the big challenger to Starmer, and then no one talked about it after about 2 hours because everyone knows, Streeting included, that he does not stand a chance. This is really the big story. I think, and I say this with some knowledge behind the scenes, that there is an agreement between Streeting and Burnham, because Streeting knows that he's never going to win a vote in either the Parliamentary Labour Party or, more importantly, in the Labour membership widely. So he knows that he can't beat Burnham, he can't beat Rayner or Miliband. I'm not even sure, actually, he could beat Starmer, because there's not a lot of constituency for Streeting's politics, even though, obviously, they cleared out the left. So even in the party that remains, there's not really a constituency for him. So Burnham if Burnham wins this seat, he's in. Now, also, there are people quite close to Burnham, very close to Burnham, who say, completely uncynically, Burnham wanted this. Burnham wanted this particular seat because he wants to prove his chops. If he were to go for a very safe Labour seat, admittedly, not so many of those these days, then it would just seem like a chicken run that he was kind of just sailing through.
People are saying that, Jonathan. It's easy for him to say that now when he's clearly been snooping around other seats he might be able to take. He can now brand it as, oh, look, I'm going after this difficult reform seat. One journalist posted yesterday that a Labour MP had texted them saying, well, yes, he had tried 26 other seats.
I've heard mixed things about this. I've heard from people close to Burnham that that's not true. There are a couple of seats that he wanted. Right. But, either way, this is the one that's been offered to him, and it's an extraordinary gamble for him because his political career is over if he doesn't win it.
Well, Renee, on that, I think over the last 24 hours we've seen quite a lot of political bravery that we haven't seen for some time. Wes Streeting risking it all. Maybe he doesn't have the names. Josh Simons risking it all. Yeah, potentially Andy Burnham risking it all. Isn't this the kind of political courage that we've been yearning for?
Well, not really, because no one in the country who's trying to put food on their table is actually benefiting from these people's egos and their political bravery. So what we've got now is, as Streeting says, we do have a vacuum, he's right, but we have now at least another 6 weeks of nothing being achieved in government, people not being able to afford their food and their energy bills and everything else, while this lot are doing exactly what they said the Tories needed to go for, just fighting amongst themselves because of their own egos, those who want to be the top dog and run the country without actually running the country.
I mean, looking at the situation we're in now, a lot of people will say Andy Burnham, he's got this gold dust effect. That's certainly because he's not been tested. He hasn't been part of national political discussions for a decade now. He's not been in government for a very long time either. If he comes into contact with reality, all this stuff about being in hock to the bond markets, he's going to face a major crisis very quickly. The country is in deep trouble. It's in peril.
Deep trouble.
And he doesn't necessarily, based on what we've heard so far, have the solutions.
No, he doesn't have the solutions, and I don't think any of them do, and I think that's the problem. I think that's why none of them really want to go for this or wanted to go for it, because we are in deep, deep trouble, and only a government that is actually brave enough to make some very tough decisions about how and where we spend our money is going to achieve anything, and these people cannot do it because of their backbenchers, and they know it.
Two things to say about Burnham that are going to be difficult. The first one is that in the by-election campaign, he's basically going to have to campaign against the government's record. And he's able to do that because he hasn't been in government, but that does make it a slightly odd by-election campaign where he's sort of standing against Labour along with all the other candidates, standing explicitly against Starmer, so that's going to be humiliating for Starmer. But more importantly, I suppose, if he does win the by-election, again, a huge if, because Reform only came within 5,000 votes the last time when they were kind of a nothing force, or a very just a lower force.
Or a smaller team.
If he does win it, then what does he do? Because he has to... Labour has been elected on a manifesto. That's Starmer's manifesto.
Absolutely.
So if Burnham wants to govern, he can't deviate too much from that manifesto or he loses electoral credibility and sort of democratic sort of legitimacy. So what does he do then? Because he has to govern as a Labour party that was elected, but obviously he needs to refresh the Labour government for the reasons that you've identified, Renee, that people are crying out for it. But so I think there has to be a middle ground between basically being Starmer, sort of, with a different face, and also doing a kind of a Liz Truss thing, where she kind of came into power in 2022 and thought that she'd won a whole new mandate, which of course she hadn't. She didn't have a mandate to completely change government's programme.
But let's not forget, you talk about the manifesto. Labour have not really done anything in their manifesto.
They've already betrayed it several times.
The manifesto wasn't good enough.
Time and time again. Well, it might have not been good enough, but that, as you rightly said, is what they were voted in on.
Yeah.
The money they took away from old people, the farmers, digital ID, none of this really, really important stuff was in the manifesto, but they're doing it anyway. It was in the King's speech.
Well, they also did a U-turn on the sort of the taking people's money away thing, and that was obviously the original sin of the government and what cost Starmer so much credibility at first. And, there are going to be a lot of post-mortems in the months ahead about what went wrong with Starmer. I suppose the thing now to decide is how he goes. If he's sort of pushed to deliver a timetable. We know now that he's not going to face a Boris Johnson-style kind of coup, because people, I think, in the Labour Party don't want to completely humiliate him. So they might have to force him to set out a timetable. So that's what will come next, I suppose.
And just quickly, do you think any of the candidates are capable of accurately diagnosing the problems that we have in this country? They're just saying we're not going fast enough, further enough. That's not the case.
I think that Burnham, if he gets in, knows that he's got one chance, and he will try to sort of reshape things and get rid of this sort of managerial style leadership that Starmer's been offering and deliver something that more than incremental change. But really, Labour has been doing good things. They just haven't been able to communicate a story about what they've been doing.
We've heard that many times, a communication problem. I'm not sure everyone's quite buying that. Very quickly, you two, who will win the by-election?
Reform.
Who will win the by-election?
I'm going to say Burnham by whisker.
There we go. Very good. All right, thanks for you both. We'll be speaking to you the next hour, but first, let's get a 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you. The top stories. Labour MP for Makerfield Josh Simons has stood aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. Announcing he would stand down, Simons said he believed Burnham could drive the change our country is crying out for. Elsewhere, a college student has died and 2 people are being treated after cases of meningitis in Reading, the UK Health Security Agency says. It said close contacts of those affected were being offered antibiotics as a precaution. In other news, Donald Trump has left Beijing after an historic state visit to China. Following talks on the final day of the visit, the US president has suggested the military destruction of Iran is to be continued. Donald Trump has claimed he and Xi Jinping have settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to solve during the US president's state visit. And British Gas has agreed to a £20 million payout and to compensate customers who had a prepayment meter installed without their permission, regulator Ofgem has said, following an investigation. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, there's more news at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, the Beijing power pageant comes to an end as Donald Trump is en route to Washington. But was anything achieved between the 2 world leaders? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel, again, out there today. A fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Emergency roadworks affect the Bothwell off-slip and North Street on the M8 eastbound at junction 20. There are delays on the A4042 northbound between New Inn and the A472 interchange. In Durham, a broken-down vehicle closes one lane on the A19 northbound between the A182 Easington and the A182 Merton. The A52 eastbound in Nottinghamshire is shut due to a collision, with reopening expected this afternoon. In Hampshire, a lane is closed due to a broken-down lorry on the A31 eastbound. And on the trains, South Eastern services face disruptions between Hastings and Tunbridge. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 10:37. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, Donald Trump has left Beijing after a historic state visit to China.
Well, following talks on the final day of the visit, the US president suggested the military destruction of Iran is to be continued.
Well, Donald Trump has claimed that he and Xi Jinping have settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to solve during the US president's state visit.
Well, we're joined in the studio by US journalist Chapman Bell. Chapman, good to see you this morning. So much to talk about on this visit, but not a lot of really tangible details on deals, agreements. What can you make of this?
Well, does that surprise you? I mean, this is not that uncommon. You know, Trump saying that they were able to sort out a lot of differences that other people wouldn't be able to do. Look, some of the things we do know, they did discuss Iran. Trump saying that they both want the situation to end, they both want the Strait of Hormuz to reopen, and they both agree Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. However, there's a lot of back and forth on this topic in that China has offered to help in the past, and the U.S. has said they don't need China's help. Trump has said, you know, China needs the Strait of Hormuz open more than the U.S. because they get a lot more of their oil through that. Interestingly, though, he's also said that perhaps there could be an agreement in the works for China to start buying U.S. oil and gas to help circumvent that issue. You know, these trips for Trump are often very transactional. It's a transactional diplomacy, and it's also very business focused. It's more economic gains, and you know, they both want to go away saying they've made a good deal and they've reset the relationship. But how things evolve, we still have to wait and see. However, Trump has said that he's invited President Xi to the United States in September, so it looks like he's called it a reciprocal agreement, and you know, there's a lot of talk of, you know, reciprocal things between the two of them. Xi Jinping invited him to the official residence and said that it was reciprocating Trump inviting him to Mar-a-Lago in 2017. So there's a lot of this talk of, you know, trading.
Now, Chapman, some analysts have said that the whole of Trump's foreign policy endeavours have been about refocusing US foreign policy towards seeing China as the big threat, the big rival, and away from the European sphere. Some people have even categorised the Iranian war in that context. But in some ways, that war has really weakened the US in terms of their capacity to rival China, should it invade Taiwan, as some people fear. Do you think that Trump is slightly weaker on this visit than he has been before?
I mean, it's hard to say. That is a topic that has come up quite a bit, that, you know, that it's weakened his position globally and that it's empowered a lot of other countries. You know, Xi did say that they had affirmed a new position on a constructive, strategic, and stable China-U.S. relationship. But he did also bring up the Taiwan question, and he has said that it's the most important issue in the ties between Beijing and Washington, and if things were to be troubled there or get difficult and not handled properly, there could be clashes or even conflict. So that was one of his main points, I think, laying it out to the U.S. president, that Taiwan is something that they really want to be careful and cautious. However, this comes as U.S. Congress has approved, I think, nearly $14 billion in military aid to Taiwan. So, you know, Marco Rubio, who was on the trip, said that the U.S.'s position on Taiwan has not changed, and that's that strategic ambiguity where they will provide weapons to defend themselves, but whether or not the United States would get involved in any kind of conflict with China and Taiwan, it's very ambiguous.
obviously, we know that Tehran is Beijing's major ally. So there's pressure, isn't there, from the Chinese counterparts towards the American team to reopen the straits, but I don't think he can do it, right? That's the problem that Donald Trump has got. He's in a bind here.
Well, he's even said about the strait, he said, they want, we both want it open. He said, Iran closed it, then we closed it on top of them. And, who's got it closed right now is uncertain. But the fact is, tankers are not flowing through it freely. Trump did point out, too, that China does not want a toll system in the Strait of Hormuz. It just needs to be open to commerce. But everybody has worked out that it is probably the most difficult position in this whole Iran conflict is this stretch of waterway and keeping it open. And even if it were open tomorrow, it's still going to have a long-term backlash for some time.
Now, you mentioned the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, was on the trip. Pete Hegseth, Defence Secretary, also there. Additionally, Elon Musk. Has he made up with the president? What was his role on the trip?
Yeah, again, as I pointed out, a lot of these trips for Trump are very business-focused. Now, Elon Musk was there, NVIDIA's CEO was there, the CEO of Boeing also there. But we've heard very little about any, as he said, there have been some wonderful trade deals for both countries. We've heard very little about the tech side of things. Now, this Boeing issue has been brought up quite a bit, saying that they've placed an order for somewhere around 200 Boeing jets, China has. But orders are one thing, deliveries are another. And this has happened with other visits to countries where they've placed big orders, but these orders aren't going to be fulfilled for another decade minimal. So orders can be canceled, there can be backlogs. While it might be seen as a good thing, it's also, I think, good for Boeing to have this positive press selling jets to China, because China's commercial airline company, Comac, has really been trying to put their jets out on the international market. Though it's a little early for that, it is potentially seen as a third competitor with Airbus and Boeing. So it is a good, solid thing for the U.S. economy to see that China is still buying Boeing jets.
Just comparing some of the pictures we're seeing now to the atmosphere that we saw when Rachel Reeves was in Beijing, there was a greater sense of joy almost at the British visit. It looked like more of a celebration, but this visit, it seems more serious. It really is two global superpowers.
Well, it is, and it's not just in terms of trading partners and economies, but it also has grown into actual power players on the international stage. Now, they did seem very cordial. They did, Trump said before leaving that he's walking away very impressed, and he hopes that when President Xi visits Washington, he too will walk away very impressed. They reaffirmed their strong relationship, President Trump saying that they have been friends now for 11, 12 years. And there was a lot of this positive reinforcement of the close relationship and resetting it. But in the background, I think there is that whole, economic interest on both sides, whereas they want to be competitive but don't want to potentially disrupt as much moving forward.
Chapman Bell, fascinating stuff. Well, we'll await any future developments. I somehow suspect that Donald Trump won't be as rude about Xi Jinping as he has been about some of the European leaders. Well, coming up next, with all of this political turmoil, Sir Keir Starmer says he's focused on delivering change for working people. But do the party behind that door on your TV screens represent the working class? But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies for most of Portugal this weekend. Same goes for Sicily and Sardinia. A few showers likely in Croatia. Showers can't be completely ruled out in Madeira as well, with a fairly brisk and cool wind blowing here. Plenty of sunshine though around the Spanish costas. Sunny spells too for the Balearics, as I said, Sardinia and Sicily. Some heavy showers though in Croatia. They should be moving away though, so Dubrovnik looking sunnier on Sunday, and signs of things warming up a touch in Rome as we head into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I got scammed over a period of about 18 months. I met the family. I actually met my scammer, met the family, friends. They were all part of the scam.
Did you get a sense, Lynn, that you were being scammed? And if you did, when did that happen?
Not until I went to the police. It took a long time. I think I was groomed over a period of months. So anything he said, I believed. It's very hard to explain how these people can get into your head. You know, only anyone that's been scammed will ever understand. You know.
Mm. And how helpful were police when you first went to them?
Police didn't really want to know, if I'm honest. They said, just forget about it. I said, no. I said, I'm not forgetting about it. I said, you've stolen my money. I said, I want my money back. I said, I said, I'll go and do something myself. But at the time, I was just so, I don't know what I would have done. Anyway, they changed their minds and we set up a sting with them over a 3-month period.
Wow. How much money had this man taken from you, Lynn?
About £100,000.
Gosh.
Over the period of 18 months.
Yeah.
And what would he be saying to you in order to get that money from you?
In fact, I offered him money 8 months into it because I believed that I'd lost something. I was made to believe that I've lost something, so I was offering him money and he refused at first. And then it just got into I was chasing the money back and it just, one thing after another, it just led on to another.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10:49. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Miriam.
Well, the Labour leadership battle has begun. Andy Burnham, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Ed Miliband and Al Carnes are all rumoured to be gearing up to challenge the Prime Minister.
But can Labour win back the working class? Well, let's speak now to the academic and author, Dr Lisa Mackenzie. Dr Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this morning. So many different names we've read out there. Only one of them really seems to be going for it. Andy Burnham, who's been described as having gold dust with some floating Reform Labour working class voters. What's your perspective?
I'm not sure it's going to be gold dust. I'm not sure it's also going to be as easy, perhaps, as it seems. The drift away from Labour by the working class, and especially the deindustrialised working class or the white working class, has been happening since 1997. If you look at these constituencies over many years, their drop in voting patterns towards Labour has sort of been disintegrating, which led to the 2019 election, where these communities then lent their votes to the Conservatives. They pulled back a little bit in 2024, but I'm still not sure, actually, that even Burnham, with his gold dust and the King of the North, I'm not sure whether it's going to be enough to win back these voters who know the Labour Party intimately. They know that for over many years they've used their votes to send friends and colleagues to Westminster. So, that parachuting in is a well-known trope in these communities.
Now, Lisa, at his great reset speech last week after those disastrous local election results, we saw the Prime Minister lean into some pretty progressive concerns, rejoining the EU, clean energy, the kind of things that people who switch to reform are not interested in at all, quite frankly. What kind of message do you think Andy Burnham would have to put out in order to try and win those voters back where Keir Starmer has failed?
And I think this is the tricky bit, because Burnham, you know, is traditionally sort of New Labour, you know, a Blairite, really. And the things that the Red Wall has turned against Labour for, which is the EU, also the people in the Red Wall, they want an industrial policy. They desperately need an industrial policy, because I'm in Nottinghamshire, and the jobs have they've disappeared. They really have. It's been over 40 years and no one has taken the hold of this. So voters are desperate for someone to represent them in Parliament. So Andy Burnham, even though, you know, he may be, again, this sort of figure that looks like a unifying figure, is he going to win back the Red Wall by dropping his, you know, the sort of connection to the EU? And then also there's immigration as well, which, again, this sort of soft left, including Angela Rayner and Wes Streeting, this soft left are very sort of cautious about the immigration argument. So for any of these candidates, which I think are actually working together and they're not adversaries, for them to sort of, you know, form the next government, which I think that's what they want to do, what are they going to do about the Red Wall and about the things that they're squeamish about, which is the EU, which is industrial policies, and also immigration?
Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, I'm so glad you raised industrial policy and work. We know that Makerfield is a high-skilled working-class community. It rates above average in terms of the national picture on that. But here's something that might be quite difficult for Andy Burnham on that issue. He has always said there must be no turning away from net zero. Now, Reform's message, obviously, is that net zero is a dangerous con. It's costing us millions, billions, and that it's ruining our ability to relaunch manufacturing and industry in the country. Do you think that could be a major sticking point for this upcoming debate?
Yes, it's definitely going to be a major sticking point. It's going to be an issue that he's going to have in this constituency. But also, I think because I believe that Rayner, Streeting and Burnham are working together here. And all three of them, you know, none of them are looking at an industrial policy. And that is what the Red Wall needs. And also this soft left Labour group, they need the Red Wall. You know, it's interesting. I think they are pitching at the Red Wall.
Lisa, I'm so sorry. We are out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. But Lisa Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Still ahead, we'll be talking about the Sunday Times rich list. Miriam and I haven't quite made it just yet. We'll see.
Pay rise needed. This is Britain's Newsroom, Britain's favourite morning show.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel, again, out there today. A fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the Midlands, eastern and northern England, much of eastern Scotland staying dry and bright for most of the day. Temperature-wise, a little bit higher as well, just starting to tick up and signs of things getting a bit warmer as we go into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Are you dreaming of a ton of tax-free cash this summer? We want to make that dream come true with a stunning £76,543 and 21 pence in cash to spend however you like. Put a new car on the drive or just relax in the knowledge that this year we've got your back. For a chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Good morning, it's 11 a.m. on Friday, the 15th of May, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Well, is Andy Burnham making his big move? The Makerfield MP Josh Simons steps aside as Andy Burnham swoops in to run for the seat and for number 10.
Yes, here in Downing Street, the Prime Minister is in office, but barely really in power. After talking about Wes Streeting yesterday, Andy Burnham is now the man of the moment. Can he win that critical by-election? It could be Burnham or bust for the Labour Party.
Well, we're on the ground here in Makerfield, speaking to people about how they feel about their MP Josh Simon standing down and what they make of the possibility of Andy Burnham taking his place.
Well, Reform have responded to that challenge. Nigel Farage has declared that his party will throw absolutely everything at the by-election. Well, Richard Tice MP, he went even further on GB News yesterday.
Our ambition is to ensure that Andy Burnham is thrown out completely. So we want to defeat him in the constituency. He will have had to resign as Mayor of Greater Manchester, and then we will win.
In fact, in almost all of our seats right across the country, whether they're target or non-target, the Green Party vote share is rising.
Well, as I say to my children, do as I say, not as I do. The Green Party leader, Zach Polanski, didn't register to vote for the local elections this month.
And coming up tomorrow, there's a weekend of protests. 4,000 police officers will be deployed to the capital city to oversee that pro-Palestine protest, and also the Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom rally and the FA Cup final.
And spend it like Beckham. Sir David Beckham has become the first billionaire sportsman in the Sunday Times Rich List, which was released this morning. Back of the net for Bex. Charlie, I didn't actually vote last Thursday either.
You didn't?
Shock. I registered to vote, and then I had to last-minute stay over in London, which meant I couldn't go home and vote, and I was too late to get a proxy vote, or obviously a postal vote. So I'm afraid, like Zach Polanski, I'm also not going to be on the register of electors for that.
Yeah. It's the start of your many similarities between you and Zach Polanski.
Absolutely.
I'm always talking about this.
Absolutely. I'm obviously a raving lefty. I don't live on a houseboat, though.
You don't?
No.
Well, nor does he, apparently.
No, apparently not.
Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. There'll be more questions about that to come, I think.
Fascinating news at the moment. Josh Simon's really interesting character, obviously no longer, or soon to be no longer, an MP. But I did a debate with him a few months ago on fertility rates, obviously, and I was extremely impressed with his knowledge about the subject. Very few Labour MPs willing to touch that. Very intellectually gifted man, but obviously no longer in the House of Commons.
Yeah, lots of intellectually gifted people in the Labour Party at the moment, but are they governing
I wouldn't say that's
gifted?
their main strength.
Government gifting is a bit of a different sort of role, isn't it?
Well, is Andy Burnham about to come in and change all that? It'd be interesting to see if he does set out a new policy platform. He's said various different things to various different people about the bond markets and all sorts of things, but he's going to have to set out a manifesto now. We're going to have to know what kind of PM he'll be.
And the last week, the local elections were termed by Reform as a referendum on Starmer. That seems to have worked out. They got their wish there. I think they'll go for this one, saying this is a referendum on Labour, and this will be an election where you can not just get rid of the PM, but get rid of the party as well by having a general election.
Well, it's going to be one of the most consequential by-elections in history, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Let us know what you think. Send your views and comments to gbnews.com/yoursay.
But first, let's get a news update with the one and only Tatiana Sanchez.
Charlie, thank you very much. The top stories. Labour MP for Makerfield, Josh Simons, has stood aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. Announcing he would stand down, Simon said he believed Burnham could drive the change our country is crying out for. Earlier on Thursday, former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, also seen as a potential challenger to Sir Keir Starmer, said she had resolved her tax affairs with HMRC. This comes as Wes Streeting resigned as Health Secretary. In his resignation letter to Sir Keir Starmer, Mr Streeting said he'd lost confidence in his leadership. James Murray has become the new Health Secretary. Deputy Leader of Reform UK spoke to GB News.
I'm absolutely sure select someone who has the best chance and who will ultimately defeat Andy Burnham. And our simple campaign is vote Reform, make Burnham history. And that's the point. We've essentially already replaced him as the King of the North with the fantastic results we got last week in the local elections, when we won whole councils all over the North, from Gateshead, Sunderland, and Barnsley, Wakefield, St Helens and the like. So, yeah, look, the North have already spoken.
Housing Secretary Steve Reed told us he is disappointed in Wes Streeting's decision to resign.
of all, I felt very sad that Wes had decided to stand down. I've known Wes personally since before both of us were members of Parliament. I think he is an incredibly talented individual and a politician who makes a really big impact. We saw that in the figures yesterday that showed the biggest fall in NHS waiting lists for 18 years. So I'm sorry that Wes decided to walk away when he and the government were delivering a big change like that.
In other news, a college student has died and 2 people are being treated after cases of meningitis in Reading. The UK Health Security Agency says close contacts of those affected were being offered antibiotics as a precaution. The agency said the person who died was a student at Henley College and was sharing information about the infection with students and parents at all affected schools. It added the risk to the wider public was low. The UK HSA said 1 case had been confirmed as meningitis B and it was awaiting further testing results. It has not said what the link to Reading was. GP Surgery, the heart surgery based in Henley-on-Thames, said it was in contact with the UK HSA due to the college's location, adding the agency was actively contacting those who may be at risk due to a close association with the student involved. Donald Trump has left Beijing after an historic state visit to China. Following talks on the final day of the visit, the US president has suggested the military destruction of Iran is to be continued. It comes amid stalled talks with Iran after Mr. Trump said the already fragile ceasefire was on life support. Donald Trump has claimed he and Xi Jinping have settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to solve during his visit. The US president also said China wants the Strait of Hormuz open again and that Beijing has already agreed to buy oil from the United States. British Gas has agreed to a £20 million payout and to compensate customers who had a prepayment meter installed without their permission, regulator Ofgem has said following an investigation. The energy supplier will compensate customers who were affected in 2018 to 2021 on top of payments that have already been made to those affected in 22 to 2023. British Gas will also write off up to £70 million of energy debt for vulnerable customers as part of the agreement. And finally, Green Party leader Zach Polansky has admitted he didn't vote in recent local elections as he fell short of time to register while moving house. In a statement to The Independent, a party spokesperson said Mr Polansky could not vote due to the extra steps needed to register to vote anonymously following recent anti-Semitic and homophobic abuse. Polansky previously told Hackney mayoral candidate Zoe Garbett, "You have my vote," in a video on the 3rd of May. Well, it all comes after controversy over whether or not the party leader may have failed to pay the correct council tax while living on a houseboat in London. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Here's the finance.
Markets on the move. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
The pound will buy you $1.33 and €1.15. The price of gold is £3,414 and the FTSE 100 is at 10,224 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Right, some breaking news to bring you just now. The Prime Minister has issued a statement saying we're in the fight for the soul of this country. The Prime Minister saying that they've blocked extremists from coming to the United Kingdom ahead of the Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom march.
Well, he goes on to say 11 foreign agitators have been blocked from coming to the UK ahead of the unpatriotic Unite the Kingdom march. The Prime Minister warns violent thugs who spew hatred on our streets will face the full force of the law.
Well, Saturday is expected to be one of the busiest days for policing in recent years as thousands descend on the capital. Very interesting to hear that language coming from the Prime Minister's spokesperson, that the Unite the Kingdom rally is unpatriotic, using such charged language about this rally, about this movement. We know, of course, that the Labour movement and the Prime Minister are viscerally opposed to Tommy Robinson and Unite the Kingdom. But to describe it, blanket, as unpatriotic, we saw, at least, I can't remember the precise numbers of who went last year, but it was a major movement, 6 figures in terms of attendance last year. And we haven't heard him describe the pro-Palestine marches, which are filled with anti-Western rhetoric, as unpatriotic. Again, it just does seem to me that it's much easier for the government to take on these movements than it is for them to take on the Islamists within the ranks of those movements. I mean, where are the bans on Islamist speakers coming to Britain to take part in sermons? Where is the action that's been taking place from the Charity Commission, for example, or other levers of the state after what we saw on October the 7th? We had so many sermons being preached in addresses at mosques around the country that were undoubtedly extremist. Prime Minister and the Labour movement very happy to talk about their bans on the Unite the Kingdom rally, but suddenly, they don't do anything on this one at the same time.
And where are the bans on young men coming across in small boats
there we go.
who then commit horrendous crimes? They're stopping people come in for speech crimes. Of course, there may sometimes be a case for that, absolutely, but they're stopping those people coming in who want to come to a rally, but yet we've had 200,000 undocumented migrants coming across on small boats. Still no realistic attempt to stop that happening. I just think Labour are so wide of the mark on this issue. Nobody's saying that there may not be some trouble at these marches, but fundamentally these are people who are coming together to celebrate the United Kingdom. And we saw just yesterday in Wes Streeting's resignation letter accusing Reform of being English nationalists when they actually came second in the Welsh and Scots election. I think Labour have failed to understand the patriotic movement that's gripping this UK.
Well, they're describing these figures as 11 foreign far-right agitators, describing one speaker who is known for inflammatory and dehumanising rhetoric about Muslim communities. Now, I've looked through some of these speakers, and I do think that the language a lot of them use is unacceptable, and there could be a case for blocking them coming here if they are going to, say extremist things, stir up racial hatred, as the CPS say they're going to be challenging. But if they're going to do that, if the government is going to make those statements, what about concerns expressed elsewhere? They've been reacting very swiftly on this proposed march. But do we see them making bans on speakers intending to attend the Palestine-related marches? I just haven't seen that same level of action. And perhaps that's why we've seen so much anger from British Jews when they point to all of the hate spewed at many of those marches. Where is that same level of cracking down on action?
And if they're trying to win back voters who went from Labour to Reform last week, well, they're going completely the wrong way about it.
Yeah, and perhaps this is just the future for the United Kingdom, because we have such a diverse and multicultural society now. We don't, this statement refers to the fact that we are at our best when we come together in a common purpose. Because there might be so much splintering, in order to prevent agitation between communities, the state's answer is censorship. It's a very bleak situation.
Well, that's such a good point as well, because all the discussion about the constituency that Andy Burnham might be about to fight, Makerfield, has been around, it's a completely different constituency to Gorton and Denton because it's 97% white, so we know how people will vote. Well, isn't it astonishing we've got to the point where we know how people are going to vote based on the country of origin or the demography?
Very worrying times indeed. Right, it's 13 minutes past 11. Let's go back to our top story, and that's the Labour leadership battle has begun, of course. The Labour MP for Makerfield, Josh Simons, he's announced that he will be standing aside so Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer.
Well, the now former Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, quit his post yesterday, saying the party needs a vision, not a vacuum.
And Reform UK are chomping at the bit for the Makerfield by-election, saying they'll throw everything they can at it.
Well, Wes Streeting has just tweeted this: "We need our best players on the pitch. There is no doubt that Andy Burnham is one of them. The Makerfield by-election will be tough. Votes will need to be earned."
He also says that Andy is the best chance of winning, and that should override factional advantage or propping up one person. Well, let's cross now to our national reporter, Sophie Reaper, live for us in Makerfield. Good morning to you, Sophie. Thanks very much for joining us. Just had that statement in from Wes Streeting, urging Labour figures to rally around Andy Burnham. But what are the people saying on the ground in Makerfield?
Well, good morning to you both. I'm not surprised that the former Health Secretary has made that statement. It is going to be a hard battle for Andy Burnham. That is, of course, if he's able to get to the point where he is the candidate for Labour here in Makerfield. Of course, we heard that news yesterday that the MP that was voted in back in 2024 at that general election, Josh Simons, had elected to stand down in order to give Andy Burnham that chance to run. He said that we wanted to see Andy Burnham Burnham drive in the change that the Labour Party needed. But that's one hurdle that Andy Burnham has to face. Then he has to face the people of Makerfield. And what's been really interesting this morning, speaking to the people of this particular constituency, is that it has been a bit of a mixed bag. Some people convinced that Andy Burnham would be the best bet for the Labour Party. Some people convinced that he would have no chance whatsoever, particularly after those local elections last week, where Labour lost 25 out of 25 seats. 24 of which to the Reform Party. So very, very mixed responses thus far this morning here in Makerfield. Let's take a listen to exactly what some of those people had to say.
To be honest, I think the wave is definitely towards reform. Because of issues that Reform say that they're dedicated to tackle. That's why so many of the electorate have chosen to get on board with Reform.
Labour has done it in Ashton. We are now Reform voting town. We're fed up with the welfare state. Immigration is getting to be a problem within Ashton. So, all in all, I think he's got his job cut out to be an MP at this Makerfield seat.
Now, I would ask you who you're voting for, but you've made that abundantly clear this morning with your signage. Yeah. So I take it you would be voting for Reform no matter what?
Definitely. When it was the campaigning for general election, I listened to all the candidates and I could only understand in clear, simple words Nigel Farage. He gave it straight, that was it. And Zia Yousaf's, and he's a star. He's the strong. They come across as strong. They come across as relatable.
Now, it's been really interesting to hear those responses this morning, because what's interesting is that this seat in Makerfield has historically been a Labour stronghold, right here in the red wall in the north of England. In fact, it's since 1983, when it became a constituency, it has always had a Labour MP. So some people may argue that actually that was a good decision by Josh Simons and by the Labour Party, perhaps, to have Andy Burnham go for this seat, because it's traditionally been safe. But then when you take a look at the results of the local elections, and you take a look at what people have been saying this morning, perhaps it's not necessarily as safe as it always was, and it's a bit of a risk for Andy Burnham to risk his mayoralship in Greater Manchester, to risk it all, to come here perhaps and try and become the MP. Let's see how he gets on.
Sophie Reaper, fascinating. Thank you so much for that report.
I have to say, Wes Streeting's statement about how the election will be tough, votes will need to be earned, and urging the NEC essentially to back Andy Burnham. He was resharing a post by our own Tom Harwood, our deputy political editor, who's reporting that the NEC isn't as sewn up for Burnham as many are reporting. That insight coming to us from Tom Harwood. He says that the vote is on a knife edge, so there's not even a guarantee that Burnham will get that seat. We'll see. Gosh.
Well, it could be the case at the end of this week that nothing's changed at all and Starmer remains in post. We shall see.
Got one comment from yours, so I want to read out just very quickly. Barbara says, Steve Reed said that Burnham is extremely talented. That makes me the equivalent to Leonardo da Vinci. There we go. Please do keep those coming in.
Well, time now for the Great British Giveaway, your chance to enjoy a sensational summer on us. You could win £76,543.21 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Here are all the details you need.
£76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. What would you spend it on? Treat the family and friends to the ultimate summer party, or just relax with enough cash in the bank to make this year your best yet. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny. So what are you waiting for? For a chance to win £76,543 and 21p in tax-free cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Heathrow, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, coming up next, Nigel Farage is facing an investigation over the £5 million gift he received from a British crypto billionaire.
We'll be going through that and more with Dr. Renee Honderkamp and Jonathan Liss. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11:23. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Miriam.
Well, we're joined now by the political commentator Jonathan Liss and GB News contributor Dr. Renee Honderkamp in the studio. Welcome back, both of you. Shall we start with this story about Nigel Farage receiving a £5 million gift? There's some question marks over what it was for, Jonathan. Is this a reward for Brexit or was it a security boon for him?
Well, one thing is certain, Miriam, it can't be both. And I have been intrigued, shall we say, by some of the conversations that I've had about this on this channel and with other friends of Farage, shall we say, where you make a perfectly reasonable inquiry about it and immediately you get shut down with saying, he needs money for his security, haven't you seen how often he gets attacked and everything, as though questions are not legitimate. Questions about senior politicians, particularly politicians who are trying to become Prime Minister, are not just legitimate, they are necessary. We need to know who is funding our politicians. I find the hypocrisy extraordinary that when Keir Starmer had a free pair of glasses, people on this channel went into absolute meltdown, but the potential next Prime Minister received a £5 million gift from a crypto billionaire. That's an industry that Farage is personally invested in, that he says he wants to deregulate. There's clearly a conflict of interest if he's taking money from a crypto billionaire, and didn't declare it. That is important. We need to know why. We need to know how. And there's another issue here. And it's really important, by the way, that the Parliamentary Standards Commission is now going to investigate this, and we'll get to the bottom of it. I think it's really important as well that we get to the bottom, finally, of how Farage or his partner was able to afford that house in Clacton, because Farage attacked Angela Rayner for a very, very similar issue and called for her to go. And if he has been guilty of the same thing, then obviously there will be very, very serious questions around him as well.
Jonathan, we are, of course, talking about it on this channel, despite your...
I'm not saying we're talking about... I'm saying that it's with other presenters...
Jonathan, let's go to Dr. Renee on this.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with anything you've said. We need to know what's been going on. It doesn't look great, and I agree it doesn't look great. I think we have a situation now where politics across the board, whatever party, is just being smeared with all of this kind of, underhand dealing that's going on. And I think you just hit on a really interesting point, that conflicts of interest with government and big business are massive now. We see it all of the time in the pharma industry, which is why they don't crack on it. Smartphones, and why they're not cracking down on tech for kids, because of other interests. And we need to find a way past this so it doesn't exist anymore.
I think that the problem is that with Farage, you have a lot of things that can't be true at the same time. So you have this sort of man of the people shtick. You have that, he's going to sort of bat for working people, but all his donors are sort of, multimillionaires or billionaires who absolutely want to sort of gut public services, a lot of them. But who's his constituency? It's people who depend on the NHS. It's people who depend on education.
This is one of the major frustrations for the left, isn't it? Despite all the anger about sort of his alliances and his background, he seems to somehow have more cut through than those who just want to do tax and spend.
He's an extraordinary communicator.
It's a crisis, and perhaps they see more than just communications with him. There is another problem with Nigel Farage and Reform UK on this, though, isn't it? This has revealed, perhaps, and this is a perspective I've heard a few times now, Renee, a sense of brittleness with Nigel Farage, and that whenever there's criticism, he does potentially get a little bit agitated more than is necessary. So yesterday, he posted a photo of a press card of a photographer from The Guardian who was outside in a public space in his house taking a photo after news broke that he had bought a property in cash shortly after receiving that £5 million gift. The Guardian put out a statement saying that they were concerned by this publication of this individual's credentials on social media, saying that this reporter was working lawfully in a public space. But I'm a reporter. I believe in the freedom of the press. Why is a senior politician having a go at a photographer for reporting legally about a story? He said, this is exactly why I need security. What's all that about?
Well, I think, again, those two things can be true. I think it probably does demonstrate that he needs security if people can get that close to his home. But at the same time, they should be able to, and he shouldn't be doxing people and putting their stuff on social media, because, as we know, people on social media, the keyboard warriors, can get really, really vicious and do crazy things. So I agree with both stances here, but I do think he gets very scratchy.
Yeah, he does.
When pushed on anything, and that's not great.
You talk to anyone who's worked around with Nigel Farage, and they'll tell you, and I've seen the very sort of charming, culpable side of him myself. He's a very, very charming person to have a drink with, but when he gets challenged, when he feels under pressure, he gets very, very tetchy, very, very angry. He lashes out, much in the way that Donald Trump does. Yeah. And just on your point, Renee, every single leading politician in Britain has journalists outside the house from time to time. It's normal. It's not a security issue. They're not armed. Sure. That's just the part of the job. Nigel Farage wants all the good parts of the job, but he doesn't want any of the scrutiny,
Jonathan,
and that's problem.
No one can deny that he has faced serious threats to his life.
Of course he has.
That's very serious. But to say that a photographer on a public path taking a photo amid a serious story breaking is why he needs security. It shows a bit of British.
It's Trumpian, Charlie. It's Trump-style tactics that you lash out at people, that you attack people, you turn people, you send the dogs on people. Yeah, and it's
it's solidarity with the
it's a very, very problematic part of it.
There we go.
I think it could backfire. Well, a spokesman for Reform UK said Mr Farage's office is in communications with the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards. He has always been clear that this was a personal, unconditional gift and that no rules were broken. We look forward to this matter being put to bed once and for all.
Right, let's move on to this breaking news we've had from the Prime Minister's office in the last half hour about the Unite the Kingdom march, because the Prime Minister said that they had banned 11, they said, far-right agitators, Renee, talking about how it was an unpatriotic rally. What do you make of these developments?
Well, this, again, is people in power taking a decision on what is patriotic and what isn't patriotic. patriotic. And that surely is for, A, the people organising the process and people who choose to attend it to decide.
For the public
to decide, not for the government. I'd find this more palatable, although I probably never would find it palatable, if they had banned hate speakers from any of the Palestine marches, or hate speakers that we know are inside mosques nearly every weekend. But again, this looks like two-tier policing, government
Well, they banned
banning.
Kanye West.
OK, great.
OK, but if that was for you, sort of anti sort of Semitic speech or alleged anti-Semitic speech. Look, I personally, I have, I think, quite a consistent position on these issues. I think there should be a very, very high bar, firstly, for criminalising speech, and secondly, for barring people from coming into this country. I think that it's, as a general rule, people should be allowed to visit places if there is a demonstrable risk of a criminal offence being committed.
Right. Let's remember that when this march took place last time, apart from a very small amount of agitators, some of them from the left trying to make trouble, it was a very peaceful, happy march where no trouble happened, regardless of who was speaking and what they were saying on stage. So I think that they're just showing, once again, this government, that they are frit of the far, what they consider to be the far right. I don't consider this march to be far right.
Well, I mean, either way, as I say, I would never go on this march. I absolutely reject the politics of it, but I obviously think it should be allowed to go ahead. I think people should be allowed to speak at it, but I don't think people should be allowed to incite violence. And if anyone's going to be inciting violence, they shouldn't be allowed to speak. I think that's a fair compromise.
Isn't it curious? I mean, inciting violence. Yeah. So many of the marches we've had to endure since 2023, these Palestine-related marches, have had people supporting terrorist organisations, waving banners or showing symbols that praise or commemorate terrorist activities, a genocidal slaughter of Jews on October 7th. And yet, the government's statements about it are always like, we know we need to take a look at this and the police will learn from action.
People are arrested if they
Sorry, Jonathan, I'll finish this point. But when it comes to this, they're happy to use that severe language. Is it not the case, perhaps, once again, that the Labour government is talking to Labour Party members amid an election rather than talking to the country?
Charlie, if you can find me evidence of where there were people who had a proven track record of inciting violence and were allowed to come into this country specifically to go on those marches where they broadcast or sort of showed placards against Jewish people or commemorating Hamas or whatever, then we can have that conversation.
Speakers more generally, it's not just about foreign speakers as well. The CPS has reiterated its guidance about public order offences and all the rest of it.
Charlie, the law is the law for everybody. If you incite violence, then you should be arrested. I happen to think that...
It's not just inciting violence, it's also stirring up racial hatred as an argument.
OK, fine, but then you can't have it both ways. You can't say Lucy Connolly shouldn't have been put in jail, but then say people who say nasty things about Jews should be arrested. You have to have a consistent position.
I agree with you.
People being repulsive is not the same as people behaving unlawfully.
I agree, but I think the concern is people don't see that blanket white position. They only see it going more in one direction.
Because people are predisposed to see the arguments that they support and to sort of feel victimised of.
Well, thank you both for your contribution this morning. Much appreciated. We've got much more to come on Britain's Newsroom, but first of all, your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. Former Health Secretary Wes Streeting says Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham is the best chance of winning the Makerfield by-election for Labour, and that should override factional advantage or propping up one person, he says. That says Labour MP for Makerfield Josh Simons stood aside so that Andy Burnham can challenge Sir Keir Starmer. A college student has died and 2 people are being treated after cases of meningitis in Reading, the UK Health Security Agency has said. It said close contacts of those affected were being offered antibiotics as a precaution. Elsewhere, British Gas has agreed to a £20 million payout and to compensate customers who had a prepayment meter installed without their permission, regulator Ofgem has said following an investigation. And former England captain Sir David Beckham has become the UK's first billionaire sportsman in the 2026 Sunday Times Rich List. The collective wealth of Beckham and his wife Victoria has reached £1.185 billion, according to compilers of that list. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up at noon, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Mark and Dawn. They're here in the studio. What's coming up on your show?
Hello, you lovely two.
Hello.
Great to have your company.
Say it like you mean it, Charlie. Come on, say it like you mean it. Now, we have got, hopefully, an as amazing show as you two have just done. Obviously, we're talking about Andy Burnham and what the hell is going on there. And what, if you live in Makerfield, are you making of all of this? You are potentially going to have an MP that is doing it for himself rather than you.
But the hustings are going to be really interesting, aren't they? Because you can just put that point to them. You're using these people, these good people of Makersfield, as a stepping stone for your ambitions in Downing Street.
We're also going to be asking, because I think it's interesting, how many politicians we've had in the last few years. Are we now ungovernable? Can anyone actually now come in, no matter who it is, whether it's Andy Burnham or West Streeting or anyone, can they actually run the country?
I think, we had a very popular manifesto in 2019 as a country that was elected on a landslide. Ever since the pandemic, we've lost our way. I think the pandemic has caused that sense of being ungovernable, and we haven't really found a path back from it since.
Yeah, but no one's being honest. We've had a lot of political pygmies that have been trying to...
Well, yeah, there is that.
The other be our Prime Minister.
The other aspect I want to talk about is our new Health Secretary, James Murray, a man that's never had a job in his life, does not know what a woman is, and basically now runs the world's fourth largest workforce and a £246 billion annual
Don't worry,
budget.
Dawn.
But
apart
from that...
He'll only be in the job a few weeks, so I don't think we need to worry.
Well, I mean, but the point, Miriam, is the fact that they've given someone like that the job.
I know.
Someone that has no respect for 51% of the population.
He's a loyalist, and there aren't many of those left.
Well, that's
Listen,
true.
we're also going to talk about the marches, United Kingdom March in particular. Why does the Prime Minister feel that he needs to come out and highlight this march in particular as something that really is a battle that he needs to face? No mention, really, of the pro-Palestinian march.
I just know, Mark, we usually sit next to each other back in the back room there in the news house. I just know this is the sort of story. As soon as it broke, I said, if I was not presenting right now, Mark and I would be spinning in our chairs, chatting through this one. And I'll miss you afterwards as well, because you'll be doing it with Dawn instead, having a chat in here. We can catch up after 3. How about that?
No, because you're here.
That's true. That's true. We won't get our time to catch up.
You could appear as a commentator, Charlie.
It's double bubble today.
That's true. I'm pretending to be Martin Daubney this afternoon as well.
Oh, my goodness. You've got an identity crisis today.
Fantastic.
Oh, dear.
Right. We'll see you two at midday.
Indeed.
Looking forward to it. Right, up next here on Britain's Newsroom, though, Wes Streeting. He's backing Andy Burnham to stand in the Makerfield by-election, saying we need our best players on the pitch.
Well, we're going to be joined by one of Burnham's former opponents next. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Warmer and drier weather is on the way, but not really until later next week. For now, it's still feeling chilly, but at least today, fewer showers and more sunshine, making it feel a little more pleasant. However, we've still got low pressure in the North Sea. We've still got Arctic winds, and those winds will continue to bring showers to the north of Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, and some areas through the Midlands and the south of England seeing heavy downpours and longer spells of rain. Elsewhere, not as many showers on parts of Northern England, parts of Wales, the far southwest, staying mostly dry, but it's going to feel cold in the wind. The wind especially strong for northern Scotland, with temperatures here in the single figures and even further south, at best 14 or 15 Celsius, and by the time we get to the evening, those temperatures dipping once again. However, we end the day with some sunshine through Wales, the Midlands, parts of Northern England and Northern Ireland in between the showers. Like I say, the showers not as frequent as previous days and unlikely to see hail, which a lot of places have seen during the last few days. But there'll be some lively downpours nevertheless, especially in the south as we end the day. They do become more restricted to the far north and east overnight, some continuing to trickle into western parts, but in between, and certainly inland, widespread clear skies, and with winds easing and that cold air still in place, well, many places seeing temperatures dip into the low single figures and some spots seeing an air frost, so gardeners beware. It will be a chilly night and a cold start to the weekend, but a bright start, plenty of sunshine, and we keep those sunny spells going across Scotland and the east of England well into the afternoon. Still some showers in the north of Scotland, but towards the west, cloud thickens with some spells of rain coming in later. However, it is going to feel a touch warmer.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 19 minutes to 12. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Charlie and Miriam.
Well, let's just recap on that breaking news this hour. Taking to social media, former Health Secretary Wes Streeting has said we need our best players on the pitch. There is no doubt that Andy Burnham is one of them.
The Makerfield by-election will be tough. Votes will need to be earned. Andy is the best chance of winning, and that should override factional advantage or propping up one person.
Well, we're joined now by the former Reform UK mayoral candidate for Greater Manchester, Dan Barker. Dan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on GB News. You ran against Andy Burnham. He's back up for election again, possibly, in Makerfield. He's indicated he wants to do that. What do you make of this move? He'll be leaving that role as Mayor of Greater Manchester if he gets into power.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. And I do think this whole thing smacks a little bit of desperation, actually, by Andy Burnham and Labour. And, you know, the poor people of Makerfield are just a pawn in the latest chapter of Labour's psychodrama.
Well, I suppose what Andy Burnham might say, and others in the Labour Party, is that we urgently need a change of Prime Minister. Keir Starmer is stuck. He's the most unpopular Prime Minister we've ever had, and this country desperately needs some leadership. So perhaps it could be argued that Andy Burnham is actually doing what he thinks is in the national interest.
Well, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he sees himself as the saviour of the Labour Party and perhaps the country as well, but I would disagree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, I think what we really need, because I think your points are right about the state of the country, is a general election. Well, I don't think we're going to get one any time this year, but it would be nice. That would be a better way of settling this. And,
Dan, obviously, you went up against Andy Burnham in 2024. What was it like on the doorstep for you, going up against a man who many are saying has a gold dust effect with Labour reform swing voters? Obviously, we've heard loads of people saying that's not the case. But did you find it particularly challenging going up against him as a personality? Did lots of people who like reform but said they were voting for him, did you hear that perspective a lot?
Well, he does have a personal vote, there's no doubt about that, in Greater Manchester. But, I mean, 2 years ago, when I stood against Andy Burnham in the mayoral election, we were polling as a party, you know, in single-digit figures. We're now polling over 30% nationwide, and actually Makerfield is possibly one of the best areas in the country, definitely in the northwest for us. Last week, we won every ward, and if you look across the wider Wigan Council area, which is Lean Atherton and Wigan as well, we won 24 out of 25 seats. So this is an area that's historically been Labour that is now voting reform. They have disillusioned with the Labour Party, and they're now turning to us as the way forward, and we are the way forward for them. So we're very confident that we will put up a good candidate, and we will give them a good fight in Makerfield. We really will.
Now, we understand that the selection process for the Reform candidate will be overcome pretty quickly. But who do you think your party will be looking for? Somebody local or perhaps a celebrity?
Well, I think we've started that process. We've launched our campaign. Our campaign was launched within minutes of the news breaking yesterday. But we will go through due process. Ultimately, Nigel selects the candidates based on what he thinks is the winning formula for each by-election. And I think by-elections are so important, you know, in terms of the detail, the fact you've got up against someone like Andy Burnham. We need to make sure that the candidate fits the area and fits the competition as well.
And Dan, looking at this seat in particular, looking at Makerfield, What do you think will be the key issue there? Because it is slightly different, perhaps, from other seats that Andy Burnham might have selected. It is 97% white, I think you said earlier, Miriam. It's got an above-average level of a skilled population as well. We're unlikely to see perhaps so much campaigning on Gaza as we saw in the last by-election for the Westminster Parliament. What do you think will be the key issues in Makerfield? Do you think this could be a by-election actually on the Labour government, a referendum on whether we want Labour still in power?
Well, I think it almost certainly will be, given that you've got Andy Burnham standing there who's clear his only intentions is to go and become Prime Minister. That's the only reason for him leaving his post as Mayor. But I think you're more likely to see it being around the things like cost of living, net zero, immigration. I mean, you know, Makerfield and all of Wigan really is one of these places that is felt left behind, particularly by Andy Burnham. If you look at what he's done in the city centre with the, you know, in terms of all the high-rise buildings that have come up, looks very nice. Looks like, you know, Manhattan skyline that's just come out of nowhere. But then you don't have to go far in Greater Manchester to find people who have felt left behind after this Labour administration, led by him. And I think we'll see a reckoning in this election for Labour and for Andy Burnham.
Dan Barker, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Dan Barker, former candidate for the mayoral race against Andy Burnham. Charlie, in that election, Andy Burnham did get 63% of the vote. That is a pretty strong personal vote for Andy Burnham, regardless of where the Labour Party is sitting in the polls. It's going to be a close one.
It will be a close one. I think it'll be decided by a whisker. Much more tight race than the one we saw in Gorton and Denton.
Yeah, definitely. Well, plenty more to come on Britain's Newsroom. But first, if you're in search for some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny skies for most of Portugal this weekend. Same goes for Sicily and Sardinia. A few showers likely in Croatia. Showers can't be completely ruled out in Madeira as well, with a fairly brisk and cool wind blowing here. Plenty of sunshine though around the Spanish costas. Sunny spells too for the Balearics, as I said, Sardinia and Sicily. Some heavy showers though in Croatia. They should be moving away though, so Dubrovnik looking sunnier on Sunday, and signs of things warming up a touch in Rome as we head into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Scotland has 790 offshore islands, with 103,000 islanders populating around 100 of them. For the people that live and work there, ferries are a lifeline. Businesses need to transport stock, attractions rely on tourists, and islanders board for the everyday necessities found only on the mainland. But island communities grow increasingly frustrated at frequent cancellations and unscheduled maintenance, pushing the Caledonian McBrain fleet to its limit. As election campaigning got underway, CalMac announced a third of its fleet was out of action.
We're off to Arran just to see how much these maintenance woes impact islander lives.
Alistair Dobson runs Arran Ice Cream. A fourth-generation dairy business recently awarded the Golden Scoop Award.
If the ferry doesn't run, everything stops. All the other islands will say they've got a big tourism industry. Arran surpasses them all. You're then pitching tourists against locals, against commerce, because everybody's trying to get the same ferry space.
When 2 Arran ferries were delivered 7 years late and £350 million over budget, just for them to enter into a never-ending cycle of repairs, well, frustration swelled into fury. Election party solutions come in all shapes and sizes. The SNP pledges a £10 million resilience fund and will give local islanders board representation at CalMac. Lib Dems want to initiate a 30-year procurement plan. while the Tories would consider procuring vessels from elsewhere. Reform has pledged a 10-year renewal plan, while Labour seeks to merge CalMac and CMAL into a new publicly owned agency. And the Greens seek to extend public ownership to more ferries, ending the tendering system.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back, and the Labour leadership battle has begun.
Well, our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, joins us now for a 60-second recap of the latest.
Yes, well, welcome to Downing Street, which feels strangely calm after all the manoeuvrings of this week. But it feels like the attention has now shifted up to the northwest and that critical by-election of Makerfield. Lucy Powell, the Deputy Labour leader, has let it be known the NEC will not block Andy Burnham again, the so-called King of the North. I can't overestimate how critical this by-election is, because if Andy Burnham can win and take on reform, I fully expect a coronation, that he will become Prime Minister and Labour will have hope for the next election. But if, and it looks like it could be very tight, reform win that seat, Andy Burnham is left with nothing. And the Labour Party, I think, will be in an even worse state than they are now, because they'll think if Andy Burnham, our most popular politician, can't beat reform, who can? Going to be a huge, huge by-election.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much for that, outside number 10 Downing Street. Well, what a 24 hours it's been, Charlie, but in some ways, nothing has changed. Keir Starmer is still the Prime Minister. There is not an active leadership contest.
I think we are in a very strange situation now, Miriam, where we have a man in office but not in command. I think he probably knows that as the way things are going for him now, Sir Keir Starmer, his time is limited as Prime Minister if Andy Burnham is selected, because it'll mean that, you know, he has very little support remaining in the party, and he potentially now will have a direct challenger coming in just 4 or 6 weeks.
But he may not win that by-election.
Yeah.
That could be a real twist in the tail. Well, that's all from us on Britain's Newsroom. Coming up next, we've got Good Afternoon Britain with Mark and Dawn. Put your seatbelts on. It's going to be a wild ride.
And I'll see you at 3 o'clock. I'm covering for Martin Daubney. See you later.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A chilly feel, again, out there today. A fresh end to what's been a fairly cold week, but with a bit more sunshine, not as many showers and lighter winds. Overall, a slightly warmer feeling by this afternoon. But the breeze is still coming down from the north and still bringing plenty of showers over northern Scotland, a sprinkling for Northern Ireland. Some showers this morning for the Midlands and Wales, and they'll drift into southern counties of England perhaps this afternoon. So some showers, yes, but not as intense, not as many as the past couple of days. A bit more sunshine and lighter winds. So although temperatures are still a touch below average, it will feel perhaps a little warmer than the past couple of days. It will be quite cold, though, if you are heading out this evening, and still, particularly on the roads across the southeast, there could be quite a lot of spray and surface water from the scattering of showers here. Elsewhere, though, many places dry to end Friday. 1 or 2 showers feeding in off the Irish Sea into Cumbria, perhaps, and showers throughout the day into northern Scotland, fed in by that breeze. Still coming down from the north, still quite noticeable, but not as strong as recent days. Well, the winds are easing and the skies are clearing. It's going to turn quite cold quite quickly on Friday night, so bear that in mind if you're heading out. And something for gardeners to bear in mind as well, because as we go through the early hours, those temperatures are going to get pretty close to freezing. Towns and cities may hold up at 4 or 5 degrees above freezing, but certainly in rural spots, not far off zero to start the weekend. Frost likely across Scotland, northern England, but even further south, pockets of frost are possible through Wales and even southern England. Shouldn't be too frosty in Northern Ireland because more cloud will come in here. That'll make for a grey day tomorrow with some outbreaks of rain. Some of that will trickle into western Scotland, parts of Wales through the day. Ahead of it, the odd shower, but a good chunk of the mid.